So today's video is going to be about Arctic Fox in the color Phantom Green. So I have swatches here labeled 1 through 12, but that is not synonymous with hair levels. I'll be doing close-ups later in the video, so the numbers are just to help us keep track of each swatch as we go. Number 1 is a deep purple, 2 is pink, 3 is a natural red, 4 is black, and then from 4 to 11 we have a range that goes to platinum blonde. And then number 12 is like a toned version of number 11. So I'll be taking the dye directly out of the container and I'll be putting it at the top of each swatch. Some people do like to dilute their dyes, so I will be putting the diluted version at the bottom of each swatch. I just want to quickly say too, everyone's hair is different, which means everyone's hair will take dye differently. I also want to note that most of my swatches are not virgin hair. The only one that is the black swatch. Either way, it's always best to do as much research as possible when dyeing your hair yourself. For the diluted section, we're going to do a 4:1 ratio. So that is 4 parts of diluter, 1 part dye. And just so you know, I do use a white conditioner whenever I dilute. And I do get some people confused about what diluter is. There's a variety of reasons why people will dilute their dyes, but essentially it just lightens the color of the dye. Now that I'm done dyeing everything, I'm gonna let them sit for like 3 hours. From there, I will rinse them out, and when they're dry, I will meet you back here. So at first I was a little bit worried that I diluted it too much, but now seeing it on the number 11 and 12 swatch, the diluted part, it looks pretty good to me. I still kind of wish I wouldn't have put as much diluter, but it's still dyed, so it's okay. So number 5 and 6, you can see a difference on the top, but in reality, almost just looks like it made it darker. There's a possibility in sunlight that maybe you can see the green a little bit. For number 1, the direct dye portion pretty much made the purple look black. And then on the diluted section, it kind of just like muted it a little bit. Number 2, it actually covered the pink pretty good for the direct dye portion. And then the diluted portion, it does look like they tried to neutralize each other out, which was why I used the pink swatch in the first place. The direct dye portion for number 3 has a green tint to it, but it's relatively dark, so you'd only probably see it mainly in sunlight. Otherwise, it almost looks black, maybe like a very dark brown. And in my opinion, the direct dye portion looks the best on 10, 11, and 12. And then diluted section looks the best on number 11 and 12. So for comparisons today, I have two different ones I wanted to look at. First one I wanted to look at is going to be Punky color in the color Alpine green. This is comparable to number 12, number 11, number 10, number 9, number 8, and number 7. Next to the Phantom green, the Alpine green looks way more cool toned. I will say though, in my opinion, I feel like on the direct eye portion for number 11, the shade is similar. You can still tell that Phantom green is a little bit warmer and Alpine green is a little bit cooler, but in terms of how dark they are, it's pretty similar, which makes it a little bit harder to tell the difference. It gets much easier to tell the difference when they are diluted because the undertones really, come out for the ends. I noticed that bluish greens tend to always be pretty pigmented, at least with the ones that I've tried. So for the diluted section, the Alpine green did dye the darker blonde swatches as well. For the diluted Phantom green, I would say it kind of stops at number 9. I'm sure in the close-ups you'll be able to tell a slight difference, but they still look relatively brown on the ends or dark blonde. But yeah, Alpine green is more cool-toned, Phantom green is more warm-toned. The other comparison I wanted to do today was Lunar Tides in the color Juniper. This is comparable to number 12, number 11, number 10, number 9, number 8, and number 7. When I did the Juniper dye, I was still doing 2 separate diluted parts, so that's why it looks a little bit darker and then a little bit lighter. From my perspective where I'm at right now, it kind of looks like on 10, 11, and 12, Juniper runs a little bit darker. And it's interesting because on the direct eye portion, you would almost think that the undertones are the same and that Juniper is just a little bit darker. But as you dilute the dye, you can see that Phantom green definitely runs much warmer. The Juniper, as it's diluted, still stays pretty true green, while Phantom green looks much like a yellowy green. I did do a pink swatch for Juniper as well, so we'll compare that one. So again, on the direct eye portion, they look like very similar, but Juniper is a little bit darker. And then kind of in the same vein as the Alpine green, because Juniper green seems to have a slight bit of coolness to it, just a little bit. It did dye the darker swatches a little bit better on the diluted parts as well. Originally, I was going to be done with comparisons, but after seeing the diluted part, I did want to do one more comparison, and that's Lime Crime in the color Jello. This is comparable to number 12, 11, 10, 9, and 8. So like I said, I wanted to compare this to the diluted portion. So now Jello isn't quite as light as the diluted portion here. If I had added just a little less diluter in the Phantom, it might have looked closer to Jello. But I do think there is a similar result. It seems like number 6, it starts to kind of struggle to dye the darker blonde swatches, which would make sense if you only diluted Phantom a little bit. I imagine it would look similar to this as well. So I guess the conclusion would be that Jello is kind of a slightly diluted version of Phantom. I would say Jello might be a hair more neon looking, even though it's not like a neon color, if that makes sense. Phantom isn't muted, but in comparison to Jello, it looks a little bit more toned down. Alright, so now that we've done our comparisons, I'd like to do some close-ups. And just so that you're aware, the close-ups are going to be filmed in natural lighting as well as everything afterwards, including the pictures that you'll see at the very end. I hope this video helped. If you have a request, I do have a form linked below that you can fill out. Just remember, I only do dyes that are not tested on animals. Thank you to my patrons, and thank you for watching, and I hope to see you in my next video.